Okay, I'm super excited about this video because I think this is going to kill a lot of the myths that are out there. In this video, I'm going to show you through a simple process on how you create one of these beautiful Word templates using SharePoint data, using Power Automate without Premium Connect. Okay, so in this video, we're actually going to talk about sending a Word template via email. So this is a template that we're going to send on the parking lot request. And basically, in this one, what we're going to do, we're actually going to specify all of the attributes that are needed in this Word template without using any premium connectors. Right, so a lot of people, when they go to creating Word templates, have to use a premium connector, and then sometimes that cost gets compounded or multiplied by the number of users using that um, workflow, but you really don't have to go that route. You can actually pull this off with standard templates. So let's talk about the process on how you do this with standard connectors in Power Automate. So the first thing we have to do, we have to create a library that's going to house our template. And so let's do that. So let's just create a document library. Let's just call this parking receipts. And let's just go, yeah, we have it showing it in the left nav. And basically what we need to do is to fill out, if you look at this Word template, each one of these are going to come in as SharePoint site columns, right? Document library site columns. And this is an old feature that's been around SharePoint forever and really meant for like document templates. But I can show you how you can leverage this to create this with dynamic data. So so what we have to do is we have to create a site column for each one of these, and let's just start that process. So I'm gonna put this up in another window so I can use it as a reference. And basically, it's just going to be add new column. And here's another tip: for these tokens, keep them all single line text, regardless if you're doing a date or a number, whatever the case may be. Keep them all single line text. So that's going to give you the most flexibility and the less friction. So we just do single line text, and I'm gonna just kind of go off the top. So it's going to be uh, v requester. And notice what I'm doing. I'm putting in this prefix, and this is a personal preference, right? I'm putting the prefix of v in there just where it's a value, because I know it's just a value or a token. And that's just one of the things that I do as a best practice. So I got v make. So we got make model. What else do we have? We also have the requested date, the reservation date, so on and so forth. So what I'm going to do, let me pause this. Let me go ahead and create these columns because it's going to be repetition. So I'm going to go and create these columns and I'll come back to you once this is. Okay, so I have these site columns in here, and basically what it is going to be each one, each one of these placeholders I want to use in the Word template as a token. I've dropped those in there already, right? So what I'm going to do for each one of those columns I created, that's going to represent one of these line items here. And as you can see, the template doesn't have to be boring, right? I mean, this is a pretty graphic and dynamic template. That was kind of, I took one of those Word templates, massaged it into our needs, and kind of made it work. All right, so you can create something very awesome, and it doesn't have to be boring or just plain looking. It's great for branding and all this other good stuff. All right, so now that we have our site columns created, now what I want to do, I actually want to upload the template. So, I'm calling it a template, but really it's not a template. So let me just get out of this in Word. I have this open in another screen. Um, it's not a template. It's not a docx file extension. This is just a standard docx file, right? Um, so what you want to do, you upload it to the library to where you add those site columns, and then you open it up in Word. Now the thing about this, you have to open this up in Word, the thick client, because that's one, your formatting remains consistent, and then two, it's just it integrates well with the SharePoint properties, right? So the SharePoint document properties. Okay. All right. So now that I'm logged in, and basically what I'm looking for, I had to do that login because when I go to insert, and then there's just under the text section in the ribbon, there's a document property option. And then that document property option, what it's going to do is going to bring in all those site columns that are added to that document library. And you get this just by adding the document to the document library. It recognizes those as properties. And now we're positioned to go ahead and add and start to replace all of our tokens, right? So right here where I have this placeholder with my name, I can go in here and replace that with the requester site column because that's what's going to hold. And you notice that these are going to come in with that token type indicator. And basically, what I try to do just to maintain the formatting right. So I go into the Home tab and I pay attention to the font, the size, and the color. And that's what I want that token to come in under. So I just want to touch this one more time. You saw how it grew. I want to touch the color as well, and it almost seems like it's a bold. Yeah, so okay, so you just want to match that, right? And that's why I have these placeholders. That's why the placeholders are great. That way you can go ahead and match them, match the color, the size, the fonts, and all this other good stuff. Here's another one. So this is going to be my badge. So now if I go into Insert, go over here to Document Property and add it in. So this is going to be the V badge number, right? And then just go ahead and replace this, right? So this is going to be, pretty um, consistent, and just so let's just make this bold. And then I think what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna pause this video again, just to kind of go ahead and drop these in there, so that way we're not wasting your time with this repetition piece right here. Okay, so here's another thing I want to highlight before I pause this video. On the Insert tab, you notice that this costs you a couple of clicks and you're going to be bouncing between Home and Insert. One of the things that you can do, you can select that document property section and then say save this selection as a quick part. Um, Save it as, I don't see the option, save it as a quick part gallery. And once you do that, oops, no, hold on. I'm mixing things up. So if you go here in document property, you see the save. There's a way that you can pin this to the quick part gallery, which I've already done, and that's what's make the document property command right here at the top, and that's really helpful when you need to toggle between them, because I'm gonna be toggling, and now I just need to bounce between these two because I'm gonna use this Home tab to make sure that my fonts, my sizes, and all this stuff is proper. So let me pause this. Let me go ahead and drop these tokens into this template, and then we'll move to the next step. Okay, so I got most of them in here. I wanted to do this last one with you because I'm finding that it can be pretty tedious, and this is the technique that I use. So this last one, we need to do vSpot. That's the name of the site column that I gave that document library. And you can see that it's going to bring it in very large. So I put my cursor here, make sure I'm at a 22 bold, and it look like a white font color. So I'm going to highlight like this. And even though 22 is selected, that's not the true size. So you almost have to touch it. I usually touch the bold as well and then touch the color. And then what I'm doing, I'm being very careful to put my cursor right on the end of it and getting rid of all of the placeholder text. All right, so you don't want any extra spaces or anything like that, because we want the way that the template was laid out for us and it had all of the pieces. That's exactly the look that we want. We just want the data points to be dynamic. Okay, so once you have that, because we opened this up in the document library, this should be auto saving for us. So now we should safely be able to close this out. All right, so here, continue here. This is the web browser version of Word, so this is where it popped us in. So let's go back to the library. And once we're here, you should be able to click on it. And again, you don't want to make any changes. You just want to verify that your tokens were indeed saved. So I'm just scrolling through. The format is going to be off, and that's okay. We're not too concerned with that now. All right, so let's just go ahead and close that out. All right, fantastic. So now what we can do, we can actually move this out. So once we have our template primed with all of our site columns for the dynamic data and the placeholders, we don't necessarily have to keep this here. And I would recommend do not keep it in your library to where you're going to save, because the way that this is going to work, we're going to pull in our Power Automate. Every time a parking lot request is is approved, like once it gets this final approval, it's going to create this docx file for that particular request, save it here as a temporary storage, and you can delete it and all this other stuff. We can talk about that in the next video, but then send them add it as an attachment to the email, right? So you don't want your temporary file storage to be mixed in with your template, because if you clear it out and you accidentally delete the template, you're going to kill your entire process. So I recommend moving this off to the standard document library. Now let me do a check here before we move that, because I think I already have a template in that document library because I was just playing around with it. So I just wanted to delete that. Yep, there it is. Let me just delete this for now. Make room for our template that we created together. Okay, so now let me go back to site contents and then just move this guy over. So this is, what do we call it? Parking lot receipts. Yep, there's parking lot receipts. Just select this guy, and I love the new move and copy pro actions within modern SharePoint. If you came from the classic SharePoint, you know that this was a feat of its own, and usually what we had to do was get third-party vendors to do this simple process. So okay, so I'm gonna move this across libraries, select the equipment request, go to my standard document library, and just say move here. Okay, so now we're done. That's all we have to do. So once you kind of do that tedious task, and it is kind of tedious because you have to be careful, you have to pay attention to details when you get those tokens in there within your Word template. Once that's done, now what we can do, we can go here and flash over here to our Power Automate. And what we're going to look at, we're going to pick up to the lot approver flow that we started in previous videos, right? So let's just go edit here, and this is all primed and ready to go. This is all the previous process with getting the approval. It's a two-step approval process, so this is the second one. And if this was actually approved, this is the final email that we send. So this is what we want to go, because we don't want to create this template unless that we got all the approvals. So the first thing we want to do is, and I probably should whiteboard this out. Let's switch over to whiteboard real quick, because I think it's good to level set on what we're going to do and what it takes to pull something like this off. And again, we're using all of this with standard connectors within Power Automate. So if I go into the whiteboard, basically this is the process, and you can leverage this in many other different scenarios. So we have our template file, right? And we have that stored into our shared document library. We have it primed with all the columns that we're looking for. So we're going to build a Power Automate that's going to pull the contents of this template file, and you will see exactly, and that's what it's doing. It's actually pulling the meat, if you call it blob or whatever, but it's going to be the meat of that Word document, and copy it over and create a new file with the meat of that Word document. So from there, we're going to create a new file, and that's going to be the meat or the content, right? And once we have that, now what we need to do is update this new file with update the properties for this new file. And this is going to come from our original request, right? So you're going to have that request. It's going to have all the attributes that you need in a part of the list item for that request. We're going to pull that out and update it. That's why we did the V site request, V requester, V start date, and all this other good stuff. We're going to update all those V values in the document library with requested information. And this gives you an opportunity to do formatting as well. So you'll see like we take a date, that's in its raw form of month, year, date, or month, day, year, right? And we'll do a nice formatted date with the full day name, the full month name, commas, and all this other good stuff. This is to give you an opportunity to make that Word template ready, right? And once we have that, then we need to create, and this is the final one. Let's do red for this one. We need to get the contents of this file and then save that as an attachment, right? And then we'll email that out as an attachment. Now, this update or get the latest and greatest is critical, right? Because what we did, we created the file here, we updated the attributes, and now we need to get, which is going to do like a merge of these two, right? You're going to take the file. It's not really a merge, like this is going to happen on the update, but in Power Automate, you have to say get the latest. You have to make an explicit call to make sure you're getting the latest, which is going to have this template with all the attributes. And really, that's it. So let's see what this looks like in Power Automate. So once we have that, so as we mentioned before, the first thing we need to do is to get the contents of our template, right? And that template, again, lives in the standard document library. So let's just say get content or get file. I think yeah, I think it's just get file, right? And make sure that when you get the file, when you're dealing with files on like list items, you're dealing with two port pieces of the file. You're dealing with the file itself, which I call the meat of the document, and then you're dealing with the properties, where the site columns, the start date, V request, or V dot 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 that we created, all the site columns that are related to the file. So we don't want the properties, we actually want the content. So that's why we're going to select this, and make sure you do it for SharePoint, because some of these actions you have for SharePoint, you also have for OneDrive. So make sure you're selecting the right action. Now, once we have that, it's going to say, okay, where does your file live? So we know it's going to be in the equipment request site, and then we're going to pull it from, again, our standard document library, because remember, we pulled it out of our normal flow of things. So I'm going to pull it from the library, and actually you can drill directly to the file, right? So it's going to be the print parking receipt template, right? So once we kind of get that, let me rename this so it's very clear on what part of the process we're on. So let me say get template file content, right? So once we do that, the next action we want to do is to create a file. And this is going to be the instance of for this particular transaction. And this guy will live around, or maybe temporary storage, or you can convert it to PDF. And we're going to do that in the next video. We're going to convert this over to PDF. But for right now, we're going to email them the Word document instance. So here we got it's going to ask, where do you want to store this? This is going to be in our parking lot receipts library. And then the file name. Now, this is where things get tricky. And if you're used to creating files, you know exactly what I'm about to say. So the one thing you want to do is make sure that this file name is unique. So in order to make it unique, what I'm going to do, I'm going to use the created date, so the date of the request, right? So I have to scroll all the way down here to my requested. So I'm going to say the date it was created. And then I'm going to put a hyphen in here, and then I'm going to do the requested's name. So created by display name, right? And then I'm going to put a hyphen, and then I'm going to put DOCX. And here's the key. The key is you have to have the extension part of the file name, or else it just creates a general file without an extension, and then everything kind of blows up. Once we have this, we're in the file content section. This is where you want the meat of the template file. All right, so get template file, that's your content. All right, so that's done. The next thing we want to do is update the file properties. So we just type in update file. And this is going to be file properties, not the file. We don't want to update the meat. We want to update the attributes or the metadata around it, right? So you just do update file properties. So once you have that, you just drill right back in, go back to where you're storing this guy. And then again, this is going to be parking lot receipts. And then the ID is going to be the ID of the created file, right? So we go to created file, that's our ID. And that's going to put us in the making. And now what I'm going to have to do is just go through and peel all of these attributes off of the original request. So let me do this. So let me just say the requester is the created by in the context of the when the item was created. So request created. So this is going to be created by, or we're going to use the display name. And then the make is going to be the car make. The model is going to be the car model. And again, all this is going to be pretty standard stuff. Now, requested date and reservation date. So the requested date is the date that was actually the request was submitted, right? So that's just going to be created again. So that's going to be created. But the reservation date, I'm glad I did this, because I have so many created dates, right? Because I'm pulling in dynamic approvers and requesters and all this other good stuff, to where it sent me into apply to each loop. So that's the wrong created. I should only have a single instance of this. And so I have to pull this off of the requested, make sure I'm pulling that created date from the right area. All right, so let me go create it. Let's scroll all the way down where it says the data was created. That's going to be this guy here. And then the reservation date. Now, the reservation date on the request piece is going to be start. Now, here's an example of where I want to format this, right? So if you remember my template, I had a really nice, beautiful date format that has the day of the week, the full month kind of spelled out, and all this other good stuff. So what I'm going to have to do is drop in an expression on this case. So here, I'm going to grab my expression, call it format date. time. I know this has two parameters. It wants the date that you want to format, and then it wants to format string, right? So let me just separate this with a comma. Going here to my dynamic content. This should be my start date. Go back to my expression. Ooh, nasty. I hate when that happens. So let me do format date again. This is not going to allow, is this going to allow me to do what I need to do? Because what I want to do, that token comes over, the syntax to represent a token is very nasty. So I don't want to do that. So I just want to select it, and then Power Automate would do that for me, right? There we go. So that's the nastiness I was looking for. Now, once we do that, I know the date format that I want is just a capital D. And how do I get that? So if you do a Google search on, do Microsoft, let's see, Microsoft date format string, right? That's going to land you on this site here. And this is going to give you all the, these are shortcuts, right? I didn't have to explicitly do capital D, capital D, capital D, space, capital M, all the other stuff. I could, but this is exactly what I'm looking for, this format right here. So it just saves me a little time, and I'm ready to rock and roll. So that's where that capital D came from. All right. So once we have that, let's go ahead and drop that in. Oh, I hate that. Second time that happened. Um, let's see. All right, let's do it. Third time's the charm, right? So let's do format date. Go over here, scroll down, get my nastiness for free. Oh, come on. Where's my start date? Start date there. All right, you know what? Let me pause this because I'm wasting your time. Let me get these other tokens in. I think you get the gist of it, right? Let me get these other tokens in, get that formatted in, then I'll come back to you. All right, so I finally got through it. I think fourth time is the charm, right? So I went ahead and got that in there. So that's formatted date. And if you look at this, if I just mouse over, you kind of get a sense of what that formula looks like. It's the trigger output. Oh man, I'm glad I looked at this. My D format did not take. So let me update that. So now if I look at this now, I should have everything in. What in the world? All right, let's just assume that works. All right, so then I got the lot approver. I pulled this up from a variable, right? Because remember, um, the approvers are dynamic, so I have to do that get items loop and all this other good stuff and say that into a variable. So I'm reusing that logic, which works out perfectly in this type of scenario. And then I just put in all the other tokens, so now we're good to go. So let me just save this and make sure I don't have an error. Make sure this thing saves. Okay, so we're good to go. All right, so now we're continuing down our journey with and this was a mistake, so let's go ahead and delete that. We're continuing down our journey of getting the template content, creating a file with the meat of that content, updating the properties, and then the last one is that we have to get the latest. So here we have to tell Power Automate to get the file. So let's just say get file, and it's going to give me the file content. And then, again, it's just going to ask me the same old questions, or where are you storing this, and what's the ID of the file that you want to grab, right? And it seems like the ID is unique to that site collection as a whole, which is interesting. So here we're just going to do the file or site, right? So here we're going to do the file ID, and that's going to be off of my updated file property. Now notice you have two IDs, and in here it will tell you you kind of have this helper text, right? So if you're just doing the ID to say, hey, okay, I'm dealing with the file properties. Again, when you're dealing with files, you got two chunks of information. You got the properties, so the metadata of the file, and then you got the content, the core meat of the file. So here, if you're doing the print metadata, that's going to be ID. If you're looking at the meat or dealing with any other file operations, as it says there in the helper text, you want to use identifier. So in our case, it's going to be identifier, and that's going to pull that in. All right. So for the most part, that's it. Now we have to just take this content that we just grabbed and add it to the attachment. So this is out of sequence. So let's just put this in the right sequence. Right, and now here we already have that final approver email already tattooed and ready to go. And what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna just CC myself on here, right? And then right here where it says attachments, I need to pull this in. Now, again, with name and content, you have to for the name, you have to put the extension on there. So here, I'm gonna just do parking lot receipt, and I can put in, let me just put in like the date requested. So let me just say start date, just put that there, and then hyphen, and then maybe the requester's name. So let's just say requester. Um, oh, this is going to be the create, in our case, it's going to be created by display name. So created by display name. So I have to go all the way down here, grab the display name, and then .docx. Don't forget your extension. And then once you have that, now you just need to get the file content of the get file, which is my latest and greatest call, and you're done. So save this all and test it. All right, so once that save completes, so we're good. So let's get out of here. And now let's bring up our parking lot request Power App. And now what we can do, we can make a request with this. So let's go put in my badge number, go next, select the date. I want my spot. So let's just say the 25th of November. And next. And then which lot? I want to do South Red. And I want a Tesla charger. And this is going to be for the Tesla. And it would be cool, like if this was smart enough to say, if I select Tesla charger, to automatically select Tesla as my make. All right, so now that's fired off. I have the approver email set up here. So we have Ben set up as the original requester. And I think these are all my test ones, right? Let me see. Yeah, these are all my test ones. So let's give it a second. Let me clear these out so I don't get confused. I should have cleared these out prior. So, as you can see, I mean, you can do some really fancy Word templates. Just, put in the site columns in the document library to where you need that as placeholders within the templates, and you're ready to rock and roll. Okay, here we go. Here is our approval request, and this is for the lot, right? So it's like, yep, we have space. And then you submit that over. And then once that gets submitted, what's going to happen is that Christian's going to get a notification asking for that space within that parking lot. Yeah, you can get really fancy with them. Like I said, in the next video, what we'll do, we'll go ahead and do a PDF. So we're going to take that Word document and then convert that over to a PDF. And again, you can do all of that without premium connectors. All right, so here we go. This is approved. Yep, we have plenty. And then I hit submit. All right, so now that those are on its way, me as the requester, I should get an email notification now letting me know that my request has been approved, and it should have my Word template as an attachment if everything goes well, right? All right, so here we go. The moment of truth. The moment of truth. So I got the notification, but I didn't get the email. Where's my email? Is it this one? Yep, the 25th. All right, so here we go. All right, so nice email. All of this is the same. And then if I click the attachment, how do we do? Okay, there's the name, there's the badge, there's the vehicle, there's the date. We probably can get a little bit cleaner with that so we don't have to deal with military time. There's my approvers. Now, I probably need to go back and get the display name of the space approver, but the lot approver came through. And then there's my date, nice, beautiful format. There's my parking lot, and there's my special spot, right? And it's beautiful, right? And the cool thing about it is this is, when you're dealing, I kind of like the PDFs a little bit better, only because I think on mobile, you're going to get, your mobile device are going to be prime, whereas sending a Word document out, they're going to have like the Office app and stuff like that. I'm not sure how much of that preview you get with Word documents and the Outlook mobile only without having the Office app installed. So that's why in PDFs ensure that it's read only to an extent. It kind of gives you that false um, impression that it's read only. But that's how you do it. All right, so that's how you do a nice, beautiful Word template with dynamic data coming from a list item, all with standard connectors, no premium connector needed. You can stay within your E365, your business license, whatever you have for Office 365. You can stay in the scope of that licensing and not create solutions that will cost your organization more money. That's it for this video. Any questions, leave me in the comment section. I'll meet you in the comment section. As I mentioned before, in the next video, we'll talk about how to convert this using to a PDF. All right, talk to you soon. Take care.